Yeah, man. Yeah. Hank Shreve.
Yo.
Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor.
You're the second guy I've officially interviewed on Skype. Now I've done some interviews before. I did Mark Hummel, and I did some young guys, and I did TJ Clay, okay, and some other cats from Nashville when I was living in Nashville. But you're the second Skype guy that I've ever done. I'm excited because I think you're one of the top players around, period. But I think a lot of cats might not know about you, man, because a lot of you Northwest guys stay in the Northwest. What's up with that?
Well, it's a beautiful place to live. I'm going to say that much. I love it up here. People are great and all that stuff. But, it is, I guess, just living up in this area, it does make it harder to travel, and that's just kind of what I've been finding out in the last few years is that in order to kind of expand yourself, you have to go out and you just have to kind of make the rounds and just go to as many different places as you can. Because, yeah, that's like you're saying, if you stay in the Pacific Northwest, it's all good and, good and fine, but you can stay there. So yeah, that's why I've been really having a lot of fun doing these, like the Harmonica Collective, and I did the Helen Harp Fest, and also I did one in the Michigan one. I love those because those are an excellent outlet to, kind of expand, but also meet new people and make friends. And if nothing else, just sit around and talk about harmonica all day long.
So Hank, how long have you been playing harmonica?
22 years, in fact. I started when I was 8 years old. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm 31 now, so 23 years. Yeah. So I started when I was 8 years old. Yeah, and I came from a musical family, but there was no harmonica players in my immediate family. And harmonica is what really got me interested in music. Just what the minute that I heard the sound, it was a family friend who came over to jam with my parents, and his name was Dino Alba. So if you're out there listening, Dino, still love you. But he came over and he had a harp, and I was just amazed, like what a big sound out of such a little tiny thing, and that's what set me off, and then my parents' drummer, Willie Weber, who was excellent. He played with the Coasters, he played with Junior Walker, and he was like one of those guys. He was also non-sighted too. He was blind, so he was a really interesting character to grow up with. But anyway, he started getting me into Paul DeLay and Norton Buffalo, William Clark, and then also he had a mixtape back in the good old days of mixtapes, and I had there was also Delbert McClinton on there, and a couple others too, but I remember just hearing. Then through that, I got interested in the chromatic harmonica, and that was just like, wait, hold on, what? There's like different kinds of harmonicas. So yeah, that's pretty much what got me started on the harmonica. Is just kind of like being in the musical family, but just kind of hearing it. So yeah.
So from 8 years old until what age did you start getting serious though? Like, did you get serious? I mean, you heard delay at 8 years old.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, I pretty much got serious right when I started playing. It was kind of a weird. It was almost. It was kind of cosmic. It just kind of it was just happened. Like the old saying is, it's like, I didn't choose the harmonica chose me. That's kind of what happened, And so, yeah, to answer your question, I mean, I pretty much just jumped right in.
Somebody told you about tongue blocking and bending notes and all that stuff at 8 years old?
No, that was the other weird thing. And I just somehow, when I picked up the harp, the first thing I did was, I did a little scoop, because I'd heard that sound and I'd watched, I got to see it up close, and just somehow I was able to kind of just go, oh, I can kind of guess what's going on. I could see that he's breathing in, and I can see that, okay, he's doing something with the, and so that's kind of, so I'm largely self-taught. But I will say that I learned a lot by listening to records, just like you and everybody else. That's really where those are my teachers in a sense. But so, and then to answer your question also about tongue blocking, that came a little later, and that was a thing that also kind of happened by accident. I was just licking my lips while I was playing one day, and I was just kind of, and I caught the octaves, and I was like, hold on. And I remember, like, because my dad doesn't play harmonica, but he's a musician. So I remember going up to my dad. I was like, hey, does this sound cool? What little tongue blocking riff I knew at the time. And he was like, yeah, it sounds kind of Cajun. And I was like, all right. And so this was probably when I was about maybe 11 or 12 years old. Not quite sure. But yeah, so it was all a happy accident.
So, who were the first actual harmonica players in your life that you met and hung out with?
That is a good question. I didn't meet DeLay. I only met DeLay once, and that was when I was about, I want to say probably 15 years old, 16 years old. I did get to meet, let's see, early on I got to meet Bill Rhodes, who was...
Yeah, I know Bill from Jimmy Lloyd Ray and the Switchmasters.
Yes, exactly. And Bill's an awesome dude. He's also a great harp player, but he's also an encyclopedia of blues history and stories and stuff. So there's that. Also, a guy named Mike Muthart, who is Paul DeLay called him the greatest unknown harmonica player in the world, and there's a lot of merit to that because Mike Muthart's a killer harp player. Yeah, you would really dig him too because he kind of he had a little bit of the Bill Clark kind of tone, but he also has his own approach too. I mean, like he doesn't really sound. I mean, he's got that big burly sound, but like his own kind of thing. So, but he's actually one of my heroes too. But anyway, then oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
You met him?
Yes, and then a little bit later, I got to meet Norton too, Norton Buffalo. My parents' band and we got to open up for him here in Eugene.
Cool.
And it was really cool. We got to hang, and he was super, super friendly. And I remember because I emailed Norton when I first started playing, just kind of like I got a hold of his email, and I was also like, hey, I love you. You're my, I'm your fan, and blah blah. And then I remember telling Norton that was one. I don't know if you ever got to meet Norton a whole lot, but
just once.
He was known just once. Yeah, he was known for having an incredible memory, and so I remember, like, I told him, hey, I emailed you when I was a kid, like I was young, so I was like, yeah, right, he's gonna remember that. But he actually did. He was like, oh yeah, I totally remember that. Yeah, and then he looks over at my dad and he goes like, hey, I know you, like from the Bay Area, maybe like 20, 30 years ago. And so it was kind of cool because he and my dad kind of reconnected after that. So, but meeting Norton was like the first time I ever met like a hero or an idol of mine besides Paul DeLay, So, and then later I got to meet Curtis, and then that was pretty cool. And then now Curtis and I are decent friends. We get to, hang out and stuff. So it's cool,
Did you start immediately as a complete immersion into blues music, or were you interested in I mean, I know being around Norton Buffalo, who plays a good deal of country and bluegrass and jazz and all kinds of other music. Was it strictly blues from the get-go, or what were you trying to accomplish initially on the instrument?
It was yes and no, because I mean, blues definitely started it, but when I got into harmonica, what I did was because like I said, this is back in the days of cassette tapes. Remember going through my parents had a closet with full of cassette tapes. I remember I took one day and I just went through all the tapes and I went through the liner notes and I was like, okay, there's harmonica in here. Like I found there was a Richard Marx tape with John Duke Logan playing harp on one
Yeah.
track.
Yeah.
So I'd throw those songs on, and then I found out about Huey Lewis and the News, and then because he was a great harp player, so then so it was a little bit of everything. That's, so I guess to kind of narrow it down, it was always bluesy music, because even at a young age I could see that all these kinds of music, types of music were connected. It all kind of derived from the same areas.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was all like, that's always kind of the music I've been drawn to, is bluesy. I don't care if it's straight up blues, it could be jazz, it could be country, it could be gospel. Love a lot of gospel music, really anything. So yeah.
Was there a point, or has there been a point in your playing where you identified certain scales that you could use with certain types of music and not so much with others, or on certain chords? For example, did you learn a major pentatonic scale?
That all, like scales and stuff, that all came later, because I always started as an ear player, and as you can see, I play upside down still to this day. So yeah, so no. But what I did do is, though, is I kind of learned to like, if the song sounded kind of major,
Mm-hmm.
I would stay away from certain bends. Like, I just knew that, okay, your two full bend is a bluesy bend, so I'm going to stay away from that. You
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah. So it was mainly my ear and instinct. But once I became a teacher, and also when I started teaching, and also applying theory to my other instruments that I play, that's when I kind of started thinking more about scales and the importance of knowing them. Because, like you say, it's just like, it's not something you have to be like, you don't have to know every single scale in the book, but know at least a few of them that could help you. One thing that I always tell my students is, it's like, what should I be, major or minor? And I like what you said. You said, a little bit of the devil and a little bit of the angel on the shoulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're playing a song, like, because there's some happy blues songs out there, or there's pretty blues songs out there, right? They're like, that are more on the major side.
Right.
So, and it's like, it
Sure.
all depends, okay, like what the bass line is, or, listen to the vocal melody. If that vocal melody is leaning more towards a major sound, shift and play, more major, just, if you're, you want to stay kind of major. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of more, it started off as an ear, then later it kind of became more of a, a study.
And then with the chromatic, so like, how quickly did you get out of? I mean, okay, so for people that don't know, Hank plays chromatic in multiple positions. Okay, whereas most of the blues guys will play the thing in D or D minor. Okay, so they're playing a C harp in third position, using the notes of the Dorian scale, right? A C major scale starting on the second tone, which is D, and then going up and down the harp. This is like almost the only time you actually hear most of the greats playing in Dorian strictly. Now there are some guys, okay, starting with like George Smith and stuff, that started using the button, getting blue notes that were not in that mode, that Dorian mode, they were not notes that were part of the C major scale. They were flat fives and major sevens and things that were passing tones and stuff. You're one of the chromatic players that kind of came out of the delay school, where you're a guy that uses the button on the chromatic, right? So like, this is very cool, right? So William Clark, used the button quite a bit, but William Clark played mostly in third position, right? Maybe there was some stuff in first position. Was there? Refresh
No,
me.
you're right on it. And that's pretty much where that sound, a big part of that sound is that it's usually in third position. Sometimes there's a first position kind of thing as well, but there's The other one, I think it's 10th position. I always get the numbers mixed up, but it's basically like you're playing in third, but with the button in, you know. So if you're on a C chrome, you're playing in E flat, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But I think that's still third position, right? Just in E flat with the button in, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I kind of think of it. Yeah, and I think that's a really useful one too. But yeah, so what's interesting is like not like you're saying, not a lot of them really played cross harp or second position even in chromatic. Well, one thing, you know, just warning for those of you that are getting into chromatic and like, okay, should I learn on second position? I say actually, if you're getting into third position on the harp, perfect timing to get into chromatic. I mean, because it's a little more user friendly, more you can navigate it a little better.
Right. You don't have to bend all the notes down bottom.
That, yes, and also you have your root note on a draw, which is familiar ground for cross harp because on cross harp on the chromatic, you do not have a draw root note. Your root note is now a blow.
Okay.
Yeah, because so that takes a lot of getting used to. Is just kind of like telling yourself, okay, I do not.
What blow note is it? Tell them.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So if you're using a 12 hole, so that would be 3 blow. So which is actually the same as one of your root notes on cross harp. So luckily you have that,
Okay, right.
Yeah, so that's the one thing. It's just getting used to the tuning. It's really not a whole lot different, but just knowing the couple little things really helps. So, but anyway, yeah. So we can get into like a whole lesson on cross harp on the chromatic a different time because it's a huge subject. But that's really the thing is yeah. So just knowing where your root notes are. Yeah.
So that would be like a G. The 3-hole blow would be a G.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Right. And you're using, yeah, okay, I get it. All right.
Yeah.
And then, so what from there? You just kind of figure out where the blues scale is, and then kind of mess around with that? How'd you go about it?
Yeah, blues scale is always the answer. Blues scale is always good. Even too, like I call it the spoonful lick. The first 2 notes of the blues scale.
Yeah.
Always good. So just to tab that out, root note, 3 blow, and then when you do draw, button in, which gives B flat. So yeah,
Right.
that's that, and the blues scale also. So kind of going back to third position for a second too. This is kind of sometimes why I favor the chromatic for third position over diatonic because you can. It's a little easier to get pretty and more on the major side. So one little chromatic hack, if you will, for third position. Winslow and I started to talk about this a little bit. This is where you find your root, which in third position, 1 draw, right? Now we know that the next note up, 2 draw, it's going to be your minor third. Also, it's an F in this case. Okay, now if we want to sweeten that up, here's the trick. If you find that 2 draw, button in. So just knowing that, just know that like, hey, if I find my root and I go up to the next hole higher, button in, major third, boom.
Yeah.
Oops, my screen. Sorry about that. But
Very sweet, man. Very cool, man. Yeah, I think like somebody was recently asking on my YouTube channel, like, Jay, can you teach some more chromatic? And my answer was, I think I've shown everything I already know. So having you on here is great, Who are the cats that you've been listening to for chromatic, besides Paul DeLay, of course?
Norton was the next one,
Yeah.
because Norton was the guy that I mean, Norton and Paul both had that sweet kind of sound. And of course, Stevie Wonder. I always go to Stevie Wonder because, I mean, one of the most soulful harmonica players, I think, and just very recognizable sound. That was what kind of drew me to both Norton and Paul, because they had that kind of sweetness and they weren't afraid to kind of get major, less bluesy kind of sound. So,
Was Stevie good at playing the chromatic in all 12 keys?
well, I've heard different things. He definitely can. However, though, he also, if I'm not, Winslow would know about this, but I think he uses different key chromatics quite a bit too. Like I know he uses a key of B chromatic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for certain things, which is also which is interesting because if you try, I don't know if you ever tried to play Isn't She Lovely? You can actually play it on the C chromatic in a few different keys. Like in D, it's not too hard, but that's not the right key though. The recording's in E, so that's a little bit weird. But anyway, yeah. So Stevie, yeah, he can definitely, but he also, he uses different key chromatics. And I always tell my students is like, don't be afraid to get another key chromatic, especially a G and an A. Those, and also a B flat. Those ones all kind of come in handy for certain things. So.
Cool, man. Really interesting to know. I had no idea. I had no idea. So, getting to the subject though of positions and stuff, moving back to the diatonic, what all positions are you using like on a nightly basis?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I use third position a lot,
Yeah.
almost almost as often as I do cross harp.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I use that one a lot. I also, like I said earlier, I use the 10th position, or like third with the button in.
Right.
Some
Right.
chromatic players don't like that name for it, so. But yeah, I use those quite. I used what is it? First flat position, 11th position,
12th.
or
12th
12th
position.
position. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
should know all this, but yeah.
Dude, don't
Well,
worry about it. It's, look, man, a lot of these cats were doing this stuff before it ever had a name. So don't stress on it, man. I'll
thank you.
correct. I'll keep you honest. So yeah, so okay, so you're playing in third, a little bit of first, cross, 12th. Any of these weird minor fourth or fifth position stuff? You doing any of that?
I've been experimenting with some of them. Like it's got like there was that the movie Irishman recently with Frederick Yane playing harp
Yes,
on it.
I've been
Yeah.
hearing about this. I've heard the harmonica and it's great. Yeah.
Well, it's cool, yeah, and it's on an A flat harp. I gotta grab an A flat harp real quick, but and I believe it's sixth position because the song is in G minor. Yeah. So it's all those kind of notes. For certain, if you want like a really mournful minor kind of sound, they do come in handy for that. The only problem I have with those kind of positions, though, is that you lose chords. I mean, you
Right.
can't. There are ways around them, but that's where you have to get tricky with your tongue splits and stuff. You have to kind of have to do the single hole. So those can kind of work, but you have to know a little bit about theory too. To
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've
so
never been good at those single hole splits on diatonic. It's tough.
yeah, yeah, you have to get your tongue like really pointy, and not everybody can do that. I mean, I think you can kind of train your tongue to do that, but it all takes time. So it's like,
Right, right. But so would you say though you're using fourth and fifth position or sixth position on a nightly basis or just here and there?
for those ones kind of here and there for right now. But
Uh-huh.
I'm getting more comfortable with them. And it's funny, it's like if you go back and listen to a lot of Charlie Musselwhite's older recordings, I mean he uses these positions here and there in
Yeah,
very cool ways. So I always say Charlie's a good guy to listen to for position stuff.
for odd positions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange positions, yeah. Have you ever heard the song "The Deb" by Magic Dave?
No.
Oh, well, for anybody out there who's listening, I believe it's in fifth position. It's an incredible, incredible instrumental called "The Deb," D-E-B, "The Deb," by Magic Dave Therault, Therault. Incredible piece of music. It's amplified harmonica in sounds like a jazz trombonist. It's as jazzy as anything that Howard's ever done, and swings very, very hard. I'm almost tempted to play it for the people right now, but they'll let them Google it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So there's some really, really cool stuff you can do with positions. I'm still just enamored with first, second, and third. I play a little in 12th. Every one of my records has got at least one song in 12th position or something, but I mainly use 12th just to navigate the major scale well, and
Right.
I find it a more expressive way of playing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da with sweeter sounding bends and stuff. So have you moved scales from one position to another? Was that how you learned to navigate positions? Did you learn to oh, if I can play this lick in second position, can I play it in third? Did you do any of that kind of homework?
Yeah, and it was more like lick. Yeah, lick kind of bass rather than scale kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so, if I for instance, for first and cross, grabbing the two harps, you know, and just trying to mimic, the sound. That's kind of what got me into different positions, like that, and then the other, I'm trying to remember the first recording that I ever noticed it was a different position. I want to say it was I think might have been Jerry Portnoy, or it was either Jerry Portnoy or Little Walter. It was one of those two. And I remember hearing the lower keyed harp, and I'm going, oh, it was Hoochie Coochie Man. And yeah, and I remember going, okay, that's clearly not a D harp.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, what the yeah. So that was kind of the other thing that was just my curiosity kind of going oh, that doesn't sound right. And that's another thing I try to get my students to kind of pay attention to is notice how each harp sounds a little different. You notice so your F harp is always one of the higher sounding harps. So it's instead of a lot of harp players go, hey, what key is he in? What key is he in? What key? It's you can actually train your ear to recognize, you can get close. Todd Parrott and I talked about this a lot, because Todd is really good at hearing keys. If if a band's playing, he's oh, they're in this key, and so you can, you start doing that by memorizing the different tones of harmonicas, so if you hear a guy playing a high-pitched harp, it's okay, he's probably in an F harp or an E harp or what have you, So yeah, ear training,
So, I mean, for me, that first song I noticed that was in a different position was Trouble in Mind, the Big Walter Horton with Carrie Bell Alligator release. And then, it was from that I was able to identify Jimmy Reed, and then later Junior Wells, and, other Little Walter and stuff. I was able to identify the sound of first position over cross harp. And then later it was the album Hoodoo Man came out, it was already out. I picked up on it, and it was third position was clear. Junior Wells was using a lot of third position on that record in different places on both diatonic and chromatic. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I think that just being able to identify the position by ear is a great start to being able to play in it, and then figuring out what the root notes are and stuff. So I'm sure you've noticed over the years, though, that some of these positions translate within one song. So, for example, we could be playing an E in the key of E on an A harmonica. And on the one chord, the band's in E, and I'm holding in my hand an A harp, right? So I know that the minor pentatonic scale or any cross harp lick, it's going to work, right? No problem. I mean, everybody knows that. And I can play that scale over all three chords, you know, A and E, 1 and 4 and 5, right? And that's going to work just fine. But when the band moves to the 4 chord, if I'm in the key of E, E, F, G, A.
Mm-hmm.
So I could effectively treat this chord as first position. And by doing the kind of homework that you mentioned earlier, right, by doing that, I can move licks from one key to another and treat a chord change like a key change and start to get different scales that relate to that chord or even arpeggios. Right? So I can, and then when I get to the 5 chord, so the band's in E again, E, F, G, A, B. I'm holding in my hand an A harp. I now have third position situation available for at least 4 beats on that chord, right? So when I listen to Little Walter, when I listen to George Harmonica Smith, when I listen to even James Cotton and stuff, I hear them treating the 5 chord as if it's third position. You know, I clearly do. Like I think that they're aware of that's going on. These kind of definitive third position licks appear, right? But I can also, you know, with a little bit of practice, right? I can take a scale and transpose it to the 3 different positions. So is that something that you do in your playing? I mean, I definitely hear Paul DeLay doing it in third position. Like he'll start in third, okay, and so we're in the key of B, B minor, whatever, B, right? And he's playing the 1 chord. And then it goes 4. Back to third, right? So it's like this clear gear shift into cross. That's something I hear you doing quite a bit. And it always perks my ear up when I'm listening to you because there's this total shift. And I'm not actually sure for a second or two what position you're actually in. Like, are you in cross or are you in third? It's really irrelative. Michael Peliquin is, you know, or Howard Levy or one of these guys that has a lot of music theory under their belt. If you ask them what position they're playing in, they're like, well, I'm standing up. You know what I mean? It's not, you know, or sitting down, right? It's not about a position. Okay, it's about a chord. All right, how much of that is going on with you? Because it sounds like what I hear is a lot of that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've I don't know when I started doing that, but yeah, something I always try to make an effort of doing. And we, you know, in other instrument language, they call that playing with the changes. You know, yeah. And it's a good thing to do because you know it makes it sound more musical. You know, and yeah, it's something. Yeah, I always definitely try to do. Like the one lick I've been really trying to get into is like trying to incorporate like the bottom like 5 chord triad. Because I'm not big on overblowing yet, but or even start it like way up. It's like you're saying, yeah, you're like switching positions just for a moment, and that's always an effective tool. Like I say, it makes it sound more musical, and also the band members are going to like you a lot for doing that too.
Yeah, it's hip. It's hip. So like when I listen to delay, I'm hearing all these crazy arpeggios that like just sliding up, right? So like, and they're all notes that are right next to each other on the instrument, okay? But it's kind of like daunting when you listen to them still to try to like figure out how to like make this musical and not just like I'm sliding up and down the harmonica randomly. Man, can you give us a couple of like definitive delay arpeggios of the 1 chord or the 4 chord, or even just a couple of cool delay licks that maybe some of us could get started on?
Yeah, I got a couple, because yeah, man, like you say, he was just so signature, and some of the time it's like I don't even think he 100% knew what he was going for. I think he had a good idea, but he was very improv improv a lot. I can never say it. Jeez. Yeah, he was a big fan of improv, and he was very on the cusp, so but yeah, there's this one lick. I like it because he used it both in cross and in third, but it's where you kind of slide up. So you slide up and then you land on a 7 blow.
Yeah.
And then from there, yeah. Now, the other thing about delay is the vibrato. You had just a certain kind of it was almost kind of like a chuckle, and just like if you listen to Paul, like in his interviews, he had that certain kind of, really soulful kind of chuckle. His vibrato was very similar to that. And you do these, dips off of notes and stuff like that. So that's a big one right there, though, because that you can hear, and sometimes he'd even start from there too, rather than sliding up. He would kind of.
What is it? Is that it? What was it?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, like, and it's funny because, let's see, I'm not even totally sure. That's kind of like one of the third position kind of ones. Yeah. The other thing that, we talked about in the collective a little bit was how he would do these little high note stabs kind of randomly. He'd play. These little tweets kind of thing. Yeah. Kind of jumping between the. So this is a fun thing to talk about because there's a lot of harp students. You have them. I have them. Everybody out there, they're always like, okay, what's a good way to get from the low end to the top end, So, well, one thing, sometimes you don't even have to. You can just kind of, hit these random high notes in between. Horn players do it. My favorite, like Mark Pender from Conan O'Brien. Totally random example, but this guy, like, he does that. He'll be playing a solo and he'll do these kind of high note riffs. just kind of intermittently. So anyway, yeah, you don't always have to work your way up there. Sometimes just a quick little stab is in there. That's why big part of delays playing, just like these kind of these tweets and honks, just kind of all the way through. The other thing about delays playing is his use of the three bends, of the three-hole bends, were really, it's very blue, very blue. It's like, and what's kind of cool is it's like you're almost, if you're not careful, you could be too major with that lick. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I have to do some more thinking on this one. Yeah.
It seems like on the four chord, he's hitting a lot of first position arpeggios too, like these kind of that kind of stuff, just taking advantage of all the blow notes that are right next to each other. Is that true?
Absolutely, yeah. And those splits that we were talking about earlier, like the single hole splits, he would do those here and there too. He did that one a lot too.
What is that? What is that one?
That was 4 and 6, so I'm blocking 5.
On a draw? On a draw? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. I can't do it.
Not right now, but someday, yes.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Thank you.
Oh, well, that's totally interesting, man. Yeah, you should do like a whole video, sit down and think about like every delay thing you know. You should do a video. You should do a whole video on it. Curtis told me that Paul DeLay told him that he intentionally crafted his style so that it would be difficult to figure out for other harmonica players.
Yeah, and I believe that.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Curtis told me. So anyway, yeah, I asked the first time I met Curtis, I think I had more questions about Paul than I did about Curtis, which probably pissed Curtis off. Curtis is a great harmonica player and also has a totally unique sound and somewhat influenced probably by delay, right? Or maybe there's a little cross-pollination going on.
No, a huge influence because Paul was always, I think he was a few years older than Curtis, and so Paul was playing all the nightclubs before Curtis was, and so so Curtis, always looked up to Paul, and he, they were good friends, but there was always a friendly, slight a bit of friendly rivalry between them. And it was all cool though, because like then they would always kind of like give each other hell, if you haven't checked out the documentary Portland Mojo, definitely check it out. I think it's on Amazon.
Mojo?
Portland Mojo, yeah.
Portland Mojo?
Portland, yeah. And there's a lot of good little interviews with Paul and Curtis in there. Yeah. And Curtis will tell you firsthand that he very much is inspired by Paul. There's actually a video somewhere of Curtis talking in depth about Paul. It's like, who was one of your favorite harmonica players? And he goes, honestly, Paul DeLay. The man had tone for, the guy just had amazing tone. He was so unique and recognizable. That's really the thing too, is just just like you said, unlike any other. Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely, Curtis was absolutely inspired by that.
As far as embouchure goes, are you 100% tongue blocker or what?
I would probably say about 80% tongue block. For certain things, I still do a lot of puckering, like on the bottom holes, like holes 1 and 2. Pretty much, I pucker those all the time. But I've worked on trying to get my tone on those holes, because what I believe is I think you really can hone in your pucker sound to get, I mean, at least close to a tongue block sound. You know, you just have to know what you're after, you know, and what sound that you're looking for. But anyway, yeah, so I tend to pucker those. Sometimes the 3-hole. Sometimes I'll block that though too. But with the pucker, is like when I get into bending and stuff, I feel like I can manipulate the note a little bit. I don't want to say better or more proficiently, but it's just different when, you know, pucker versus tongue blocking.
What about blow bends?
Blow bends, I tend to kind of pucker those too, but I have been experimenting with tongue blocking them. Especially if I want it to be softer, you know, because that's where the tongue blocking on the blow bends really helps, is that it works as a nice kind of volume buffer, you know. But if I really want to, like, if I'm going for a whammer jammer, you know, magic dick money note, I'm going to want to pucker those, you know, like I really want those to like, you know, so, but if I want to kind of go more gentle, then maybe I'll block, you know. But, you know, I can get those at a small volume on a pucker, but so, yeah.
What do you think, back to Paul DeLay, what do you think he was doing?
See, that's something I'm still unsure of, but I mostly tongue blocking, if not everything. He could have been very well a 100% tongue blocker. But he also implored, you know, different, you know, tongue blocking styles too, like, you know, the single hole one. And even like he used double stops, like very beautifully, like intentionally, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, kind of
Right.
like that. Yeah. So I think he was probably mostly tongue block, if not all tongue block. So, yeah.
Cool. So, if people want to get a hold of your music, man, how are they going to do that?
Oh yeah, you can just go right to my website, hankshreveband.com. That's SHREVE, like Shreveport. And I'm also available on Amazon and let's see, I believe iTunes and all, and CD Baby and all that. Oh well, yeah, all those, that kind of thing. But yeah, and you can.
And you have a YouTube channel?
I do, yeah. I don't have a whole lot of videos on there because I'm still working on my channel. I'm trying to improve it, so I'll be watching for that.
Okay, I'll put the link below. I'll put the links to hankshreveband.com and your YouTube channel below. Are you currently on a record label?
I'm self-produced. I have it's called
Smart.
Boogie Boss Records. Yeah, I mean it's my dad and I actually, we kind of because my dad plays bass in the band, and so yeah, we do that. We've also produced a couple of other projects here in town, like we've produced some local artists and stuff. So yeah, Boogie Boss Records.
Boogie Boss Records.
Yeah.
Well, I'll find that and put those links below. Hank, thanks a lot for visiting us. Any parting advice for anybody that might be watching, and anything you would like to say or recommend or anything before we go?
Oh yeah, well thanks for having me for first off. And
pleasure.
yeah, to everybody out there that's listening to this, you know, just keep playing, you know. It's like what Deke Harp says, you know, just keep it in your mouth. And it's really true, you know, just keep playing, even if it sounds like a bunch of mindless noodling to you. Chances are you're going to come up with something good out of that. So yeah, I always tell my students, you know, just play, you know, get a jam track. Jam tracks are the next best thing to playing in an actual open mic type situation. Yeah, so definitely, yeah, jam tracks. Also, one thing I'd like to say to some harp players out there too is, you know, don't be afraid of theory. There's I've run into a lot of harp students where, like, you know, when the minute theory comes up, there's this look of just like, you know, oh no, or just kind of this look of, you know, really? No. So a lot of that, it's just, keep your mind open to music theory because there's a lot of theory in this instrument. There really is.
It's really it's really not even theory. It's just basic terminology so that we can agree to call something else so that I can communicate this idea with people that don't play harmonica.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. So at least knowing the numbering system,
Right.
and I'm talking about, scale degrees, first, second, third, blah, 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 flat fifth, all those things, just knowing that, huge.
And you can learn that as you go. You don't have, it's not like something you have to tackle overnight. You know what I mean? You can learn it as you go. Learning a major scale would be a great place to start for anybody in first position, just in first position. That's a great place to start. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to point out too is that a lot of people get, music theory and being good at music, reading music is, the same thing. You can know a lot about theory and not be a good music reader, like I kind of find that because, I got a pretty good music theory background, but, I'm still not great at reading music, So that's one thing again. So don't feel like, okay, I need to learn music theory. I need to learn how to read music too. That part can come later, get familiar with the terminology and just the language, like we're saying, and just start with that, so.
Cool, man. Well, thanks so much, Hank. And hopefully some people will buy some CDs of yours and stuff. And you teach Skype, right?
Yes,
Skype lessons. So how do they get in touch with you? They email you?
Yeah, you can go, hankshreve@gmail.com. You can drop me a line there. Also, if you're watching on Facebook, just send me a message through there. It might take me a little bit to read it, but I'll get to it eventually. You can always drop me a message in Messenger. And I'm also available on Zoom as well. So yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
Very cool, Hank. Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to someday hopefully getting to hang out with you again, provided that the borders are not shut down and we're not all living in FEMA camps. All right?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, time. Yeah, man. Really appreciate it. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks, Hank.